Let's now move on to main topic number 3. Chris, what is our third main topic today?
Third topic comes from Jay. Welp, a few Joker reviews came out over the weekend, and, as expected, it seems it's nothing short of amazing. I know I can't wait to see it. Although it's exciting, do you think all of the early perfect scores are over the top, or do you believe the hype? Thanks.
Well, okay, so here's the thing about Joker. And this I found kind of interesting and a little bit surprising yesterday. When words, obviously for those who have not heard, Joker has now debuted at the Venice Film Festival. So it's out at the Venice Film Festival and doing its thing. And the reviews, the first shot that we heard about it was that the reviews were outstanding. The word masterpiece was used by more than one of the outlets. On top of that, I got the hiccups. On top of all that, they, a couple of outlets like IGN, very notably, gave it a 10 out of 10. People, Oscar buzz and all that kind of stuff going around it as well. However, that being said, once the reviews started hitting Rotten Tomatoes, you started to see who liked it, but more importantly, and for this discussion at any rate, who didn't like it. Now, while at this moment, the Joker is holding I believe an 88%. Let me just double check that. Right now, Joker is actually holding a 80, where is it? There it is, 89%. Now with 35 reviews counted. Now, I was doing an open mic yesterday, and when I double checked that, I was actually surprised because with all the initial social media buzz I heard coming out about Joker, and as excited as that got me, when everybody's talking masterpiece, 10 out of 10, Oscar buzz for Joaquin Phoenix, Oscar buzz for the movie overall, perhaps the second comic book based movie ever to get an Academy Award nomination for Best Picture, all that kind of stuff. I was expecting not necessarily to see a 100% rating, but I was expecting to see in the high 90s. And then when I opened it up and I looked, I said, okay, 89, which, make no mistake about it, 89 is a terrific critic score. Mm-hmm. Most filmmakers would kill to get an 89 on their movie. That's a terrific critic score. It's just that with the initial wave of buzz that we heard, I was surprised because I thought it would be significant, well, not significantly, you can't get much higher than 89, but I thought it would be markedly higher. I thought it would be into the 90s. What then surprised me even more was as I started going through, I started seeing who didn't like the film. And it wasn't, Eddie Freeman 69's YouTube channel. It wasn't, Bob's Big Movie Podcast. It wasn't the John Campea Show. It wasn't these tiny insignificant things. We got places like Time Magazine. Mm-hmm. We got places like The Wrap. We have places like RogerEbert.com. We have places like, there are some big, significant outlets who eat movies like this up. Like outlets who actually really liked movies like Wonder Woman and Aquaman and things like that. And they didn't like it. And it made me pause. Like, now look, as I always say here on this show, no movie is for everybody. All film is subjective, and as a result, some people are going to like them, some people aren't going to like them. And that's just to be expected. But I remember in the midst of all this perfection talk to see which ones, and granted, there are only 35 reviews out right now. So keep that in mind. There's only 35 reviews out. Not everybody was at Venice Film Festival. But to see which, outlets were giving it negative reviews made me scratch my head a little bit. It's like, really? Like, these are the types of movies you normally like. Why don't you like it? Now, I'll say this. I have said for over a year now that this is one of my most highly anticipated films. And I think it's an important movie because it is finally the movie that is giving us a comic book based movie that is not a part of some wider expanded cinematic universe. Thank God. And I want this to work desperately because I want Marvel and DC to see that good, true, standalone movies that are separated from cinematic universes can live alongside of cinematic universe movies. And there's a lot of value to be found in that. And I think a successful Joker will go a long way to convincing them to do that. I'll say this, though. As I read through the negative reviews of the Joker, I will point this out, that I'm okay with anybody not liking a movie because, like, if it's a comedy, they didn't think it was funny. Hey, you know what? There are critics who didn't think Good Boy was funny. The Good Boys was funny. They watched it. They saw the humor. They didn't work for them. They didn't think it was funny, so they say so. No problem with that. No problem whatsoever. I would have a problem with a negative review of The Good Boys if somebody came along and said, there wasn't enough drama. It's like, well, it wasn't supposed to be a drama. Like, if you didn't like it because you didn't think it was funny and you thought it was stupid and you didn't like the performances, that's cool. But at least don't like it for what it is. Don't dislike it for what it was never meant to be. And, I read a couple of these negative reviews and I'm reading some comments like, well, if you take away the social commentary and if you take away the character that it's the Joker, and if you take away, he descended into madness because he was abused both by society and maybe as a child, then there's not much left there. The first thing I wanted to say was, but you don't take those things away. Those are a part of the movie. It's like saying about Good Boys, yeah, Good Boys, but if you take away the comedy, there's not much left there. Bad movie. But the comedy, you don't take away the comedy. The comedy is a part of the movie. The social commentary and the reflection of what drove into madness and the fact that it is the Joker, I get it. Like I myself, you guys know, I myself will say, like for instance, the El Camino trailer, right? I'm like, hey, if you take away the fact that it's a Breaking Bad movie, I don't think anybody's excited about this trailer. I don't think there's much to it. That's one thing to say that about a trailer, but you're actually talking about the movie. And all these things you're saying, well, if you take these things away, there's not much left there. Maybe that's true, but they are there. That is a part of the movie. They are integral to the movie, and thus that's part of the total package. So you should evaluate it on that level. If I read, and one or two of the critics that didn't like it, they were saying, look, I just didn't think the social commentary they were making, I don't think was very good. I thought it was too thin. I didn't think they actually explored it very much. I can respect that. I do. I completely respect that. But some of these reviews that are talking about in terms of, they say the performance was great. What they were going for was ambitious. The fact that they did the social commentary is a reflection, not just of the 1980s and 90s, but where we are today. But if you take all that out, there's not much there. That part I take issue with. I do take issue with that. So Rob, let me ask you this. We're seeing, of course, we heard the first big flood of overwhelmingly positive stuff. We're now seeing that there are some significant outlets giving it actually a negative review. If I were to ask you right now, what do you think the chances are that this Joker movie gets Oscar buzz? When it comes down to it, Joaquin Phoenix gets nominated for a Best Actor award, and that Joker itself gets nominated for Best Picture. Obviously, you haven't seen the film yet, so we're just speculating here. But hearing what we're hearing coming out of Venice, what are your thoughts on that right now?
Well, that is a very good question, and I read a lot of the reviews that you read, and a lot of tour de force performance from Joaquin Phoenix, which I think, look, whether he's in the Joker, whether he's Commodus or whatever, Joaquin Phoenix is one of our great actors.
So good.
And when you're front and center, when you're the titular character in a film, and you're literally twisting your physique around to show how twisted your mind is, it looked to me like this is exactly the kind of performance that gets noticed. And this whole idea, the whole idea behind the film, I think is a good one. And the negative reviews like you that I was reading, people thought that it's not more than it is or something. Or people saying it's an incel anthem movie and all of this. And I'm like, but it's supposed to be about how our callous, uncaring modern society can do this to a human being, and how any one of us could be in the position that Arthur Fleck, the Joker, is in this movie. And I'm like, it seems to know what it was wanted to say and wanted to be, and it seemed to go and do that. Now, the reviews that I've read that were negative were objecting to that very idea. Like, this is too heavy-handed. It's evocative of Taxi Driver or King of Comedy. And I'm like, yeah. And so if the filmmakers set out to tell a story, whether you think that story is good or cliche or whatever, my whole thing to judge a film is, did the filmmakers succeed in making the movie they intended to make? And by all accounts, they did. So I'm really excited about this movie and the fact that it is a throwback to the 70s and 80s, and it is overtly honoring the films of Martin Scorsese, including hiring Robert De Niro to play a thinly veiled character from another Martin Scorsese film. Bring all that stuff on. I mean, it's the negative reviews I read seem to be a little contrarian for the sake of being contrarian, and I think there's going to be a lot of people that are like, you know, this movie's, when it comes right down to it, it's still a comic book adaptation, and who are you to try and make a comic book adaptation this relevant? Well, to me, it's the next step. It's the evolution of the comic book character in film, and I think it could only be a good thing. Because comic book movies can be many things to many people, John. Ghost World was a comic adaptation. Road to Perdition was a comic adaptation. History of Violence was a comic adaptation. So why can't a movie like The Joker be like this? I'm deliriously excited about this movie. I can't wait.
Yeah, and again, I have no issue. I have no issue, none, with anybody watching a movie and saying what it did not work for me. And that's fine. Even if the director made the exact movie they were trying to make. If a director is trying to make a movie about a big pile of shit that sits there and they just film it for 2 hours, they accomplish that, but that doesn't make a good movie. And if you watched a movie and you didn't like it for what it was, and it did not work for you, and you had issues with it, I respect that. I have no issue with that whatsoever. Where I start to take issue, though, is when it's like, but if you take these elements away, then you're not left with much else. Yeah, but those are the elements it was based on. You can't just remove that part of its identity. Like you can say, oh yeah, well yeah, you know, Khabib is the greatest combat artist in the world. Yeah, but if you cut off his left arm, he's not all that good of a fighter. But he has his left arm. I mean, that's exactly what this is saying to me. Yeah, Khabib is the greatest UFC fighter in the world. But you know, if you cut off one of his legs, he's probably not all that good. But he has his legs, and that's the point. And that's where I take issue with some of the negative reviews. The negative reviews that'll come out and saying, we watched it and we just didn't like it because it didn't work for us, I respect that. I do, because that's going to be every movie, no matter what. But it's the ones that are saying, we don't like it because if you take out these things that are great in it, then you're not left with much else. It's like saying, yeah, the cake was great, but if you took out the flour, it's not really good cake. But the flour's there. I don't know. Chris, you're hearing about all this. You heard of the initial huge buzz. Now you're seeing some of the negative ones coming out too. Where do you think this leaves Joker right now in terms of its Oscar chances? Understanding that we're just speculating because we haven't seen the film yet.
I think this still has tons of potential. And of the negative reviews I read, the Times one really was the only one that seemed to be an actual compelling review of, you know, actual points to make in there, because they took issue with, you know, this didn't seem like it had a cohesive plot, but rather a series of events that kind of just happened. There wasn't an ongoing story aside for this character introspective. I would have liked more of a plot. Sometimes the acting seemed erratic, which it's an erratic character. So is it over the top? Is it him being his character? And Rob already brought up the incel thing. It was one of the lines that stuck out to me the most in that review was the Joker could be a patron saint of incels.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I saw that line too.
I'm part of like a women's filmmaking group, and I've seen people had that kind of concern too going into it, of maybe like fetishizing or glamorizing, you know, violence towards women, or, you know, elevating a domestic terrorist and glamorizing that. But I think that is the point. That is the story that you're supposed to be seeing.
Yep.
How somebody who has those values can become not only the way he is, but kind of an icon to other people. You know, in comic books, you see people all the time who super fan out and ship Joker and Harley. Which is crazy to me. That's bonkers to me that people would be like, you know what's really romantic? Oh, that guy who abuses the shit out of his girlfriend mentally and physically. Oh my God, so into it. There are so many people who do find these characters glamorous and interesting and relate to them. And so I feel like as an audience member, someone who goes, oh, I don't get that at all. I would love to see the journey of how someone can, one, rationalize all those thoughts, and two, why that character connects to other people. I want to know that. I want to know the psychology of that. So these negative reviews actually make me more interested in what's going to happen, because I think it's going to be a discussion piece.
I think you're absolutely right, and if it already is. I mean, the divisiveness in these reviews, and people talk about, oh, the patron. I didn't read the patron saint of incels. I didn't read that.
That line
That's
was like,
really
whoa.
But I mean, when you've got guys like Elliot Rodger who write a 150-page manifesto about why he went and shot up a bunch of people at UCSB, I mean, it's like this is really going on.
Yeah.
It's not like there's people are wondering, oh, why are there so many mass shooting events and what's going on? Well, there's a reason, and it's a psychological reason, and our society is forging these people. And I think maybe Joker is exactly the kind of movie we need right now to shed some light so people understand, and maybe let's not be that way.
Yeah.
Right. Now, and look, just to restate the obvious again, I haven't seen the movie.
Me neither.
For all I know, I'm going to watch it and hate it. Maybe we'll all hate it. I don't know. I haven't seen it yet. All I know is this. I think this is a movie that is desperately needed right now for a genre that I think needs to have things changed up a little bit. So I'm super excited for that. For a character like this, that if you're ever going to do a movie about a villainous character, this is the movie to do. I love the look of this thing. I cannot wait. And again, I don't want to be misquoted here. I take no issue with anybody who watches this movie and on its own merits, it doesn't work for them. I have no issue with that. That's fine. I'm just saying, let's not then judge the movie based on what we think, if you take it away, isn't going to be there, or what we think. See, I've said this before too, Rob. I've said, one of my fears, I said on this show about the Joker movie, is that there are going to be a number of people who go into the movie expecting a Heath Ledger Joker, expecting a Jack Joker. They're expecting to see a more traditional comic book movie, just with the wild, crown prince of crime. And it's going to be a very different movie, and maybe they're not going to be ready for that, and it might leave them with a bad taste in their mouth. That's my one fear. But I've said this before, I will say it again. If I got two movies that I can only see for the rest of the year, it's going to be Joker and Episode 9. Those are the two. I put those two ahead of Ford v Ferrari, which I'm ludicrously excited about, and a number of other great-looking projects that are coming out. There are only two movies I can see the rest of this year. It's going to be Joker and Episode 9, and I got high hopes. High hopes for both of them. So
I just think it's great that we've got between Joker and It. I think evil clowns to scare the heck out of kids coming back in a big way is what's most important.
No.
You know what'd be funny? Somebody brought this up in a live chat to me once. Let's say Joaquin Phoenix does get nominated for Best Performance. That'll be twice that a comic book movie has won an acting award, and it would both be for portraying the same character. It's just really interesting. Just an interesting.
That is
thing.
interesting.
Just a little. And then there were some people who make the argument that there was an argument back in the day that Jack should have been nominated for his portrayal of Joker as well. So it's just kind of interesting. Everybody's going to want to play the Joker now. There you go. Guys,
gotta go full Joker, though.
Gotta go full Joker.
Full Joker.
What do you think about this whole thing, guys? Were you surprised to see that there are some high-profile things giving it negative reviews? Do you think that's going to affect the overall Oscar push? Does it affect how excited you are about this whole thing? I know it doesn't affect mine, but what do you guys think about all that? Jump down in the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right.